Hi everyone, and welcome back to Season 8 of the Propcast. I'm Louisa Dickens, your host of the Propcast and co-founder of LMRE, the global PropTech recruitment and search consultancy. The aim of each episode is to introduce you to a PropTech innovator and discuss how their work has created a shift in focus when it comes to digitalizing the built environment. If you're interested in finding out more about PropTech or applying for a job in this space, or keen to know who the big players are that are moving and shaking the real estate industry, we have you covered, and we'll be bringing you an episode each week to connect you to the VCs, PropTech startups, and real estate professionals from around the globe. Today on the podcast, we'll be discussing how ESG can tie in with tenant engagement. And today we'll be speaking with HqO's Managing Director of France, Julia, and HqO's Managing Director of the UK, Sam. So welcome to the show, Julia and Sam.
Great to be on the podcast, Lou.
Great to be here. Thank you, Lou. Love to be part of the show.
Today on the show, Julia and Sam will be going over HqO's crazy journey, which involves global growth, investment, M&A, ESG, and so on. Now, we've been trying to get this podcast in the diary for months and months, so I am delighted that we are finally recording it. For those who do not know HqO, they are active in over 200 million square foot across 24 countries worldwide, and 57% of the Fortune 100 rely on HqO to build meaningful relationships with the people in the workplace every day. And I'm super excited to be hearing more from Julia and Sam about this product. So without further ado, let's get started with the show. We might as well start off like we usually do and letting the audience know a bit more about your journey. So Julia, why don't you start us off? You obviously have an impressive track record in leading greenfield organizations. You clearly have some expertise in the PropTech field since your time at WorkWell, but also you have an impeccable investment and analytical grounding for your time at various impressive investment banks like the New York Stock Exchange, Deutsche Bank, and HSBC. So tell us, how did you get to be the managing director of France for HqO?
Yeah, it wasn't the most direct route to that. I started off my career in finance and had the fortune to work in New York at the Stock Exchange, and then in London and in Paris and back in New York for different financial institutions. And then, I took a pivot, still staying in the, as it were, in the investment world of real estate this time. But was one of the first members of the team over at WorkWell, which was a competitor to HqO a few years ago. I was based in Paris at the time that I joined HqO and joined HqO to launch the French market. And I've been with the team since November 2019. So back when the world was normal and all periods between.
For those going to Canada, and Julia will be there representing HqO and the JLL stage as well. So feel free to get in touch with her if you want to set up a meeting or something. Now, Sam, similar to Julia, you have a breadth of experience ranging from the British Army, CBRE, Berkeley. You've worked in worldwide really as well. How did you end up at HqO yourself, and I guess relevant experience you bring to it?
Yeah, I think it's similar to Julia. We've had quite varied careers today, but I think that adds a lot to what you can bring to the team. I think since leaving the army, my career in real estate has really been focused around growing those sort of high performance sales teams, different parts of the world, bringing together businesses. When I worked for a big Chinese corporation, setting them up in the UK was very much the focus of what I had to do. So I think the progression, as a lot of people have gone from real estate into PropTech, it was obviously quite appealing at the time. And got approached by the guys from HqO, and obviously it seemed like a very exciting proposition. Like Julia explained, setting up the country from start, being the only person there and bringing everything together and growing the team, getting where you are, has been a great, enjoyable process. And I think, again, coming up to 3 years here now, but with the majority of that being during the pandemic, I think we're really looking forward to what we can deliver now as the world slightly returns to normal. And the growth we've achieved in that time in Europe has been great fun. It's been an interesting phase.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing a bit more about the growth a bit later and talk about all the money you've made, what you've done with it. But for our audience, obviously there's different tenant engagement products worldwide. Please tell my audience, a bit more about the product. And also what I would love to hear, since I guess both of you joining, Sam, you've been there longest, how has almost changed as well? Products pivot a lot, especially since sort of COVID. Whoever wants to go first with talking us through some of the basics, and I guess what sort of changes you've seen in the last few years?
I guess, as I was here first, I'll go first. I think for me, what's been really interesting is the one constant in our world is change. Everything changes very quickly, both out there in the real world, but of course in a tech company or at least a very much service-driven company, things do change considerably month in, month out. And I think the evolution of our product in the time I've been here, as I said, nearly 3 years, has been absolutely phenomenal. I look back to what it was like when we started and where we're at now. But I think the one underlying thing that I've been really, I think, drawn to working with HqO and what we do is that human connection piece. So regardless of the product, it's working with our customer base to really understand what they're trying to achieve, but engaging with the people in these buildings. And whilst we can talk about our evolution recently into a more flex-focused product that's really been quite compelling, we've done a huge amount of work on analytics and data. I think all of those things fundamentally are about how we're connecting with the people. And I think that's the sort of baseline that we must forget when we're talking about tech. It isn't just necessarily the product, it's what we set out to achieve.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that the industry as a whole, it's been just such a fascinating change over the past 2 years. Like when we started, delivering something to the office market was something kind of predictable, something pretty stable. We're just seeing everything be transformed. So keeping up with that change and letting us go into the flow of that change and respond to all of these brand new needs, it's just been so interesting.
Yeah. So give me an example. Okay. Say I'm one of the tenants, one of your customers. What value do I get out of this product?
So if we're talking about the end user, so that's just the actual individual employee in a building. So I'm going to have the technology on my mobile device to do a whole range of things in my workplace. So that can be anything from being able to book different meeting spaces, being able to work different workspaces. Right now, we've just seen this massive evolution towards flex, towards desk booking. So facilitating that, but also down to things even in the infrastructure of the building. So being able to use your phone as an access badge to different areas of the building. It's really going to be up to our individual client, what it is that our client being the either the landlord or the corporate employer, what they want to deliver to the user. But the possibilities are endless.
Yeah. Like Julia says, it depends on what they're trying to achieve, but ultimately it's about enhancing that daily experience. You know, from different buildings you've worked in, Lou, you've got a totally different suite of either services or features or amenities. And so it varies considerably, but ultimately it's about connecting you to those services and features and making your a day in the life of Lou Dickens in a building a lot happier and I guess easier is probably a way to convey it.
Yeah. And I think in this era right now where the focus is really being directed at the employee and what their experience is and re-engaging with them and making them see the benefits of the workplace, that's also where we can bring in some softer elements. So that's working with our customer success team, not only on the physical aspects of the office, but also bringing perks to employees and thinking up discounts in the vicinity or promoting local food and beverage and giving people special deals on that. That's, I think, some of the nicest moments that we have with our clients is bringing that value to users.
Yeah. And I guess for the audience listening in, just before we hopped on, Julia, Sam and I were sort of chewing the fat on what we were seeing, reading and in the market. And I mentioned about a stat which I read on HqO's website, about 48% of the working population in the US are seeking new employment. So basically employers, they need to understand what employees really want. And they're not sort of getting it completely right, which led to obviously the Great Resignation movement in early 2021, which hasn't been such experience over here in UK and Europe. But from what I've heard from, I guess, LMRE's US team, and obviously we deal with movement of candidates, it's been huge. So obviously the importance of a product within this space like HqO, I completely understand why I guess landlords want to make sure they're using it.
Hey, it's Michael Beckerman, CEO of Cretech and Cretech Climate. I hope you'll join us in Copenhagen for our first dedicated climate event on May 17th through the 19th. Only 200 of the world's leading sustainability professionals will be on hand at this event to connect, exchange ideas, and be inspired by world-class speakers. For more information, please visit our website, cretechclimate.com.
Now, moving on to a slightly different question, which is obviously around the investment. You raised I think secured your Series C by some pretty well-known investors. I think it's Insight Partners, JLL Spark, Navitas Capital, and you have some new investors joining like Cushman, Wakefield, Suffolk Capital. This has obviously allowed you to experience a pretty big growth across North America, UK, Europe, obviously, which Julia's sort of very much leading at the moment with Sam. Are there sort of any areas of focus or growth for the business, which HqO is looking at, maybe in sort of certain markets? I guess it varies from region to region. Sam, do you want to go first?
I think you're right in terms of varying from region to region and market. I think our big move now in Europe is really, I think you're going to do it two ways. Is one, it's really consolidating what we deliver across those territories. We've now got people in a number of countries on the ground from both a sales and a CS perspective. And I think obviously Julia and I are very fortunate working with Chase and talking regularly with him. One of his visions a while ago was enabling us to service our customers in any market that they wanted to go to in Europe. And we're very aware, obviously, the pair of us working in that territory, but the US business of how things vary considerably within the geography of Europe. And I think as we're pushing forward, making sure that we can service a customer in all the different languages and all the different territories, all the technologies that brings is a real big focus of ours. If you think about it from not looking at product, just a pure geographical focus, what we're going to serve. I'm sure we'll talk about it in a minute, so I don't want to get ahead, but I think that the acquisition of Office App has been fundamental in that. It's been a really great experience for helping with that program of growth.
No, I'm sure. We've sort of seen, obviously, JLL's leading our growth across Northern Europe. There's definitely some hubs which we're seeing more adoption of technologies, of course, in Berlin, Germany, obviously, for those who can crack France, like obviously Julia doing a great job in Paris, the Nordics as well. But while from the topic, let's talk about it. You acquired Office App, which is incredible. You brought along a great team, obviously someone which I know, whether they're sort of a Kenner and so forth. Love to hear a little bit more about how that sort of came about, what it means for the business, but also, obviously, you have fantastic culture in the business. I've met and got to know a bunch of your team, whether it's in the US, UK, and Europe, and it seems like a friendly, fun, exciting place to work. How do you sort of balance that? I guess it's challenging, especially for an acquisition of the company.
Yeah, we had been familiar with Office App for a number of years. They were a direct competitor of ours in the European market. They served at the same time the real estate market as well as the corporate market, but we crossed paths multiple times. And one of the things that we saw as we got to know them was that our cultures weren't miles apart. And I think that was one of the reasons that the acquisition ended up happening, is that our visions were pretty much aligned and our cultures were quite similar. But I think that the experience of working at HqO is amazing. And the culture here is listed always as the number one reason that people join and the reason people stay. One of the big reasons for that is that we have a value system that we live and breathe by.
Yeah.
And I think that was probably like a day one lesson for our office colleagues. But I think that living by those values is what makes us one team.
Yeah. I think the Chase and Tice are very aligned on their vision. And I think when it's not surprising, as Julia said, they were our competitors ultimately. We're all going in the same direction. So doing it together now is much better. I think that's quite clear for everything. And I think that the other bit was what they brought to the table was almost where we had gaps and vice versa. So I think, again, the marriage value was really strong. And you just got to spend a very brief amount of time with them to realize straight away that this was definitely going to work. And we've already, staff are intermingled and crossed over now. And so in a very short period of time, it no longer feels like a them and us type acquisition. It really was a good coming together. And I think the teams now are driving forward really nicely.
Awesome. I think the sort of open communication, working together, helps out with so much collaboration. Now, let's talk about the ESG component. And Julia and I think we started this conversation, I think that's sort of the end of summer 2021. But I'd love to sort of delve back into it, Julia, as well. Your experience would be more on sort of the greenfield side of things. How does ESG play into, obviously, tenant experience? Obviously, everyone's saying it's the landlord and the tenants are both saying it's important to them. Do the tenants actually know why it's important to them? I don't know. What sort of trends are you seeing and how does it all go together?
Yeah, I think we can look at it from two perspectives. We can look at it from the perspective of real estate and then from the perspective of the employer. I think for real estate, it's something that we've seen creeping onto the agenda over the past few years, but right now is just becoming like number one priority for our clients. I think that the reason that it's a number one priority is at the same time because it's a necessity right now, because they actually have to take action now. They have to reduce their carbon footprint. And secondly, and maybe more importantly, because they don't necessarily know how to do that yet, which is normal. This is uncharted territory. So we're definitely all going to be learning together on this. And then from the employer's perspective, this is becoming more and more important because, like we were saying before, the great resignation period, people are looking for new employment opportunities. They're looking at what their new employers' values are and looking for actual concrete examples of that. Like the days of greenwashing are behind us. People want real evidence. So I think if we focus on then the user themselves, This is a new era where the individual user definitely ready to take action to lessen their carbon footprint. So in our experience at HqO, it's a really rich conversation right now with our clients of how can we help them achieve their ESG goals. There's a plethora of ways that we can do that.
Hi, I'm Anthony Slumbers from the Real Innovation Academy, home of the Future-Proof Real Estate course, designed to accelerate your real estate career. To learn more, please visit realinnovationacademy.com/LMRE for details and a 25% discount.
Could you talk us through it? Because some people listening in, this is sort of slightly new topic in relation to tenant engagement. So could you give us like a couple of examples?
Totally. Just to be clear, ESG, environmental, social, and governance. In the different things that we can implement, if we take, for example, the social part, the different things that our customer success team can implement at our clients can be things like events that are going to bring about inclusion or can push a different cause. Right now, with one of our clients in France, we are pushing a brand that's called Café Joyeux, which employs people of different abilities. And that's been a really big success. And it's great to give them that visibility. It's great to give users discounts to different services like this. Give another example, we have a separate client in France in Marseille. They live by their own recycling and sustainability initiatives. So for that, we've been able to include a lot of guidance to users in the communication on exactly how to be recycling, but then also giving them concrete results. Okay, so you recycled. What did that actually result in? I think if you don't know what the end result was, you're less likely to repeat the behavior. So it's really important to hone in on that result.
Well, supportive data. Right. Well, let's go on to our final couple of questions. With JLL's made an investment at HqO, which is great, as the preferred service provider for workplace experience for its clients on site digitally, which is bloody exciting for you guys, I'm sure. What does this actually mean for the whole of HqO? Obviously, it means, you need to hire people, develop the sort of product. How are you going to develop that relationship? What does it really mean for HqO?
JLL have actually been an investor of ours for quite some time. And I think whilst there's been more announcement about it recently, they've been a great partner since even obviously before I joined, but starting out in a new market, their knowledge of the marketplace, us being put forward by them in the early days when no one knew who we were, was really fundamental to the growth in the new market. And I know Julia experienced the same in Paris. And they've been brilliant. I think from a kind of, they have their XM feature, which is probably more progressed in the US than maybe we see in Europe. But definitely things are moving in that direction now, where JLL being far more aware of our product, what it does, working with not just JLL brand, but, I'm doing a big piece of work at the moment with LaSalle and their, as it were, sort of sister companies and network. It really helps them all understand what this is about. And I think their support from both, put it simply, like introductions and ratifying who we are with their big customers, all the way through to, sort of more formal channel sales approach where they're really delivering for us as well. So it's pretty broad and obviously covers a lot of geographies, but I think they're a great partner. Look at the size of it, they're in real estate, they're huge and no end of benefit to us.
They're definitely one of the most sort of well-known for being, I guess, most digitally sort of forward out of the real estate agencies out there. And whether it's a JLL Spark, JLL Technology, JLL, they're definitely getting their brand out there and brands carry. So definitely what you want on your side.
We're one of many of their, as it were, portfolio companies, and people might not be aware, but they've got investments in multiple other companies who again have synergies with us. We work with them and it really is powerful. I think to your point, they are so tech focused, but again, they've got a quality team that looks into, when they looked at investment in us, I was talking to one of them when I first joined, the depth they look into to really understand these tech companies, not just in terms of a feature set, but far broader and far deeper, means their collection of tech is really quite compelling nowadays.
And having had JLL do due diligence on us, it's been really beneficial for us in our go-to-market strategy. Our clients know and trust JLL and their valuations. So that's been really helpful.
Yeah.
No, I bet. And now, obviously, we've seen a huge amount of success over the past few years, obviously down to you guys joining. What's next for 2022 for HqO then, guys, for each of your regions?
As everyone's getting a little bit used now to the sort of the way the world is working, our focus is going to be more going back to your points about the great resignation and people in workspaces, is really driving that more holistic experience for both the users of our product and people in buildings. And whilst that sounds quite high level, put simply, whether you're an occupier in a building and both your landlord and your employer is going to be wanting to deliver service and experience for you. And we're moving closer with the corporate and the landlord, as it were, products or entities coming together. And I think we're seeing some really compelling, early discussions in how that can be done. I think as landlords are seeking to achieve a stickiness with their tenant companies, but as we've already spoken, companies are desperately trying to hold on to people. Us becoming a sort of more central role within that is definitely going to be the way things go. Yeah, I think it's that more holistic experience of being in the building.
Yeah, I think with our acquisition of Office App, we also acquired a lot of knowledge about the corporate market, and getting that has been really interesting. And I think the trend right now is, for us, it started from a landlord's perspective. What can a landlord give to their tenant to enhance that tenant experience, to make the experience in the building as attractive as possible? Then looking at it from a corporate perspective, you're talking about the same people ultimately. It's the same end users. And what we're saying here is, how can we bring even more value to them from an employee perspective? So I think that this all ties in together, and it's really about enriching the experience for the employee and creating that engagement for them in their workplace in general, not just the building, but for their employer as well.
And I think a big thing we haven't really touched on much on this, we've been, very focused about the user here, Lou, is these landlords and these corporates desperately want to understand more about their population, be it the tenant companies in the building or be it their employees. And the analytics and insights that we give are huge. And I think our customers, whoever they are, instantly start to learn a damn sight more about the people that they either employ or have in their buildings than they ever knew before. I think everything we've touched on this call so far, you're then able to respond and address that. So if you've got no idea why people aren't coming into the building, it's amazing how quickly customers start to understand trends through looking at our data, and they can really address those. The range of examples is huge, but that's how we need to be focusing as we move forward. What days are people coming in? What do they like? What services are they interested in? What amenities do I now need to provide as a landlord? Do I consider a flex component? Everything around, end of journey facilities. The list is huge, but by starting to engage with people, it's like, hey, we actually learned something from them. And of course, so that I think is going to be very powerful as people are trying to understand the workforce and what they're going to do throughout the course of the year.
Yeah, I think that's a big trend of 2022 in the real estate world, or I can only speak to France, but is satisfaction. Is how do we gauge satisfaction? How do we measure satisfaction of tenants? And where can that data come from? So HqO gives an easy solution to that. And we're there not only to provide the data itself, but also to understand what that data is telling you, and to guiding and being that consultant through the different solutions that we can put in place to keep enhancing that satisfaction.
Yeah, we've just recently started doing Soul Cycle and providing gym classes to our team. And you spoke about some nice treats on certain days. I'm definitely seeing a correlation, and people come into the office whenever we have, where it's like Bagel Monday, Soul Cycle Tuesday, all these things. Always revolve around food when the highest.
Hi, I'm Nelson from Property Quants. We run a hands-on, in-depth course that will teach you to apply data science and machine learning to real estate. To learn more, visit propertyquants.com/training. We also run a revolutionary course that will allow anyone to gain data science skills without needing to learn programming. To learn more about that, visit thenocodecourse.com. On either site, be sure to key in the code LMRE5 for a special 5% discount.
But we've come nearly to the end of the podcast, which is our final part, which is the LMRE part. One of you can give our main lesson you have learned throughout your career. M is where you can mention anyone or maybe a product, or just give someone a shout out. R is what has been the most rewarding aspect of working in prop tech. And E can be what are you most excited about in the future of this space as well. So who would like to go first with saying one of the main lessons you've learned throughout your career?
I can go first on L, on the lessons. I think that a big lesson is that revolutions don't happen overnight, but they do happen. The last 3 years are a tribute to that. We've seen real estate completely change focus. And my personal opinion is that it's for the best. I think that 10 years ago, if you were talking about the end user of the building, it was an afterthought. And right now, it's very forefront. So I think to make revolutions happen, you need to keep pushing, you need to have energy, but you also need to have patience. It's super rewarding to see that take place.
I echo all of that. Now, Sam, it is your turn. Is there anyone you want to mention to, or like a product you can't go?
Oh, I do the M now. Oh, okay. I missed the L. I was prepping on the L. On the M, well, because we mentioned SoulCycle, we should give Dan Coe a shout out, but I don't know if the rest of the business is a former employee and a top guy who first took me to SoulCycle. But no, I think for us, the big shout out goes to, I think, some of our early adopters, some of our customers that have got innovation teams that wanted to test, adjust, innovate, evolve, work with us. I think, and there's a number of them, so I'm not going to mention anyone specifically, but I think some big real estate organizations, it's sometimes difficult for them to give things a go. And I think those that have tried being an early adopter have seen some brilliant results and have learned very quickly. And they're the ones that'll be the leaders. So yeah, I think our shout out goes to those early adopters of both our products and tech in real estate in general. It's not easy for them. I want to champion them for doing what they're doing.
Yeah, real estate is definitely more like a following sort of this industry, isn't it? It's like herding sheep sometimes.
Yeah, it's quite harsh on them. Not what you've said, but people often say it is. But I think, no, it's just, the nature of bricks and mortar, as it were. It's a bigger, slower moving beast. Trying to get tech in isn't easy, but everyone out there is trying to make an effort. Everyone in real estate now is trying so hard with the ESG and the technology agenda. So yeah, it's big old buildings are sometimes hard to deal with, aren't they?
Well, it goes back to Julia's point as well. It takes patience. It takes just slowly pushing it forward, but it will happen. Now, okay. What has been the most rewarding part working in this space, Julia?
Seeing my clients not refer to tenants anymore as tenants, but as users. I never thought I would actually see that, and it's happening. And that is just so cool to see, because ultimately that's how you're going to bring the most value, is when you talk about the end consumer and not about the product itself. So I think that's been the most rewarding. I'm not going to credit HqO with having brought about that change, but I think that we've been part of that change. I think that that's what's going to bring the biggest benefits to the industry long term.
Awesome. And last but not least, Sam, what are you most excited about for the future?
I think as we've spoken about this more holistic approach, I think one of our bigger visions, our sort of big, hairy, audacious goals, Chase will thank me for referencing that, but one of our big goals is the way that physical space will be totally connected, be it whether you are in a residential component of it, whether you're in an office component of it, whether you're a public visitor. To Julia's point, it's not tenants anymore, it's about customers. So these people who own real estate. And I think us fully getting that all joined up and all working so that you get a frictionless experience as a visitor to any physical space, I think is genuinely quite interesting. I think there's to quote my colleagues at customers at Grover, there's a fine line between creepy and cool. But I do think, when you're in the space and you can have everything operating really efficiently and it just makes your day and your life far easier, then it's going to be great. So yeah, it's that proper connected cities approach, really. Yeah, placemaking, connected cities, urban campuses. We're going that way in a really heavy fashion at the moment. The connected portfolios. It's going to be exciting, genuinely.
Awesome. Well, look, thank you both so much for joining me, obviously, on the show. I'm delighted we finally managed to get a date in. Julia, I will be seeing you when I come over to France, and Sam hopefully will be hooking up for a drink or something in London soon. But thank you guys for joining me, and looking forward to catching up with you after the show.
Sounds great. Thank you very much, Lou.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Propcast, and a big thanks to our guests and our sponsors, Cretech and Reamtech. Make sure you visit our website, lmre.tech, where you can subscribe to our newsletter, keep up with our industry news and events, or if you're looking for your next career move, it's all on there. The Propcast can be found on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube, where all good content is found. Whilst we're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate it if you could spread the word and tell a friend about it, or even write us a review. And I'll catch you next week.
Making high-quality podcasts like this takes a lot of work. That's a fact. But not when you hire Copus. With our white glove experience, we handle everything for you, from guest outreach all the way through publishing and promotion. We handle it all. You show up to hold great interviews like these and build relationships with your guests. We take care of everything else. Podcasting is not just about the audience. Every podcast interview is the start of a brand new relationship. With a weekly podcast, you would build relationships with 52 ideal partners or prospects through podcast interviews over the next 12 months. Do you believe 52 new relationships could grow your business? We do. why not contact me today, jason@kopus.com, JASON @KOPUS.com, and let's talk.